This week on the Austin Healey channel, Vroom Vroom. One of the great things about doing these videos and putting them online is you all won't let me get away with anything. No shortcuts, no half measures, no temporary solutions, but yeah, some of the things I've done on this are temporary, and I wanted to explain those now so to avoid any confusion. The routing of this this pipe, this vacuum tube, it goes from the carburetor around over to the vacuum advance. It shouldn't really run through here. From what I've seen, it should run down the back and behind here and over to here. However, somebody else ran it this way. That's how I found it. That's how I put it back now, because I didn't want to risk crimping this tube and then not being able to like run the engine and stuff until I figure, because I want to run the engine and hear how it sounds and be able to tune it up and make sure the head went back together right, the timing's back together right, things like that. Then I can get back in here and route this properly. One more point was that this fuel line clip should go onto to one of these bolts. I'm not sure which one. I'll have to figure that out and attach it. Other temporary solutions. The coil has just been sandblasted and put back. I have a new coil on order. So this is a temporary solution. Other temporary solutions. This over here, the generator, is painted black. I painted it black on purpose because it was just a temporary measure until I figured out if it works or not. So I have it in place to run and see if it'll work. Just on top of that, we have the fan belt. This one's pretty easy. I'm sure you all realized it. The old fan belt is falling apart, but the new one doesn't fit. I think it's because the generator is a later model. For some reason, it causes things not to line up correctly. But that leaves me in the position where I had to put the old fan belt on just to get it to work, so that it'll drive the water pump so I can run the engine and get it warmed up and tuned up. One thing that wasn't a temporary measure that somebody pointed out was this vacuum, is that this breather tube here on the air filter should line up with the breather tube on the valve cover. Originally it was put in this location, at least when I got the engine, so I had put it back. So we're gonna have to swap those around. When this is forward here, the breather tube will line up, and then there'll be a short piece of rubber tube that connects the two. I also don't have clamps on the plumbing system yet. That'll come soon, but I think it'll hold enough water to run the engine and keep it cool. It might leak a little bit, but it's just going to be water. Yeah, I think that's all the temporary measures, so we're going to get it up and running and tune it up. So this old fuel pump that came with it has come in handy. Now this is not where you'd want to mount it on the actual car, but it works rather well here. I have a bottle of gas. This hose goes down into it. This is the tube for the actual fuel line being used here first. It pumps gas, goes through the braided tube. Found a couple leaks, typical banjo joints, and down here where the float bowl attaches. But then the problem happened. Pumping gas, it starts dripping out of the jet at the bottom. So I am going to have to take off the jet, and I'm going to have to replace the seals that are inside the jet. with the engine running, it's shaking some more junk out of this poor old frame. Yeah, I'm glad I changed it. So far, getting this to run has been a lot like plumbing. You put it together, it leaks, you take it apart, put it back together, it leaks a little bit, you do it again, finally it works. So you have lots of fluids. You have oil, you have gasoline, and you have water. We haven't gotten to water yet. We've gotten the fuel situation sorted out. It was leaking from down here, and I hadn't gone into the jet assembly with the new gaskets, which I should have done. However, there are certain things on these cars that have always been put out there like they're kind of scary. Centering the jets is one of those things. So I was trying to avoid going into the jets to change the gaskets because I didn't want to center them. Turns out I had to go in because it was leaking fuel. But it turns out that centering the jets isn't as big of a deal as many say it is or project that it is. That's what I'm learning about a lot of this, is that lots of people go, oh, the carburetors are so complicated. Well, there's a lot of moving parts, but they're not so complicated. Centering the jets turned out to be a lot easier than I expected. I didn't end up filming it because I didn't know what I was doing. But it's back together and it's not leaking, and that's a good thing. Just before I got it running, this hose decided to call it a day. So this is the hose that comes off and feeds the oil pressure to the oil pressure gauge. So I had forgotten to order one, or it was on back order, I don't remember which. And so without it, I can't start the engine because it just squirts out oil. So I've ended up cutting the fitting off, and there's a brass piece that goes, there's like a steel nut and a brass piece that goes in it that connects to the tube. I cut that off, I soldered up the brass, the hole in the brass, and I put it back on to create a plug. So that's where we are now, and it buys me a lot of time until I can actually get one of these. So the next thing we need to do is put some water in it and run it until it's warm. So that means another fluid that's probably going to leak. Just as predicted. It looks like it's coming out from the bottom of the water pump right here. I don't know if you can see it in there. So I have to take the radiator off, probably have to pull the whole water pump and see what's going on there. Good news is the bearings on this feel really nice and tight. There's no slop in it at all. So we'll just put a new gasket on it. I didn't have a water pump gasket, but I did have these. This is an assortment of just flat sheets of gasket material. It's a step up from having using cardboard boxes or paper bags, and it's really important to have the proper material in places like this. I made my new gasket. I'm going to put it on with some blue stuff and seal it up nice and tight. This is another one of those points, having the engine on a test stand instead of in the car. It's so much easier to work on to get to things like this than, you know, bending over and finding your way down in there. And, you know, if the radiator was in place, it'd be even harder, and on and on and on. Having it on the stand and getting all these problems worked out ahead of time is going to be so much nicer once the engine is in place. Well, it's still leaking way back in here. I don't know if you can see that at all. Reading online, maybe it's probably not the seal around the water pump to the block, but it's probably the seal between the shaft and the water pump. So, yeah, that's a bummer. So there's nothing I can do about it today, so I'm gonna just live with the leak and start working on tuning it up. I've decided I shouldn't be holding the wires together because I need my hands to like tune and adjust things. So I did a very simple dashboard, I guess. I have positive on the frame. I made a little post for the negative down here so that my jumper cables can just clip to. I have one switch that has the power, that's ignition and fuel pump, and a starter switch. Very fancy. So before you can tune anything else, the first thing you want to do is set the timing. This is the basis for everything else. Now on the BN1s with no timing marks, this is a little bit difficult. You can measure it with just by ear, tune it by ear. That might get you close. If it's running, that's a good start. I have I'm in a fortunate position. I don't have the transmission on, so I can use the rings, the flywheel teeth as a guide. So the timing wants to be set at 6 degrees before top dead center. So first we're going to get this at absolute top dead center and make a mark here. Then we're going to go over a few degrees, 6 degrees, because it rotates this way and we want it before top dead center. So we're going to go over like how far do we go over? How many teeth? The teeth are evenly divided. I got my calculator here. The circle is 360. You divide that by 106. How do I know it's 106? Because I counted all the teeth. So that gives us 3.39. So we want to go over 1 and a little bit. So that will give us 6 degrees before top dead center. So first, let's check to make sure we're in absolute top dead center, because, you know, a little wiggle here is going to make a lot of difference. So to find top dead center, I have a pencil. I'm going to stick it down in there. Make sure your pencil's clean. You don't want to stick dirty stuff in there. And then you're going to move this back and forth. And you're going to feel where it's at its highest point. And it's about right there. There's some backlash where it doesn't move. Should be right in the middle of that. So now, that should be top dead center. And we can make our mark right here. And just to check this, see exactly where it is, a little machinist square. So, yeah, I didn't do too bad. So the point we're aiming for is before top dead center. So it's going to be not this one, but like just before that one. It'll be about here. To set the static timing, we need a timing light. One side of it connects to positive, and the other side, well, you disconnect this part of the from the distributor to the coil. Disconnect that. You go down here and you loosen up your distributor so you're able to turn it around. Loosen it, not tighten it. Now you're able to move it. And we're close, so the light should come on, and then in this case you're going to turn it until it just goes off. Right there. And tighten it up. It's not running really great right now, but we have managed to get the engine warm, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust the valves to make sure they're within the correct range, you know, after we've ground them and all that. So this is just like the Season 1 or the Sprite. It's just, you have the rule of 9 on 4-cylinder engines. So this is number 1, 2, 3. So from here, this is the one we want to, because this one is down all the way, right? We want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which happens to be the next one over. So now we'll adjust that till it's just feeling right and tighten it up. Very good. Now we keep going. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to tell you now and then show you with the engine running, so you won't be able to hear me. We're going to balance the carburetors. Right now they're connected through this linkage right here. So when you accelerate, they both it opens the butterfly at the same time. The problem is they might not be exactly the same. So what we do, we release one side, and then we take this. It's a carb balancer tool. There's different versions of it, and put it on one side. We turn this vent until there's a ball that we'll put it somewhere in the middle where we can remember where it is, and we'll put it on either side, and then we'll adjust the screw on either side until they're both balanced and the ball reads the same. So we're going to start by releasing the spring. Now if we lift up one carb, only one side moves. Now we'll start it up and actually balance it. So there you see the reading's about the same, about as close as we can get it. Now we're going to tighten the spring thing back up. There, now everything's nice and tight. Have you ever done something really stupid? Well, I have, and it kind of worked. The engine was running, right? Well, what I did, the spark plugs, there's a certain order they have to go in, the firing order, and it's 1, 3, 4, 2. 1, 3, 4, 2. So I wired up the spark plugs. 1, 3, 4, 2. This way. But it turns out the distributor runs anti-clockwise or counterclockwise. So I'm pretty amazed that it ran. It didn't run very good, but I kept going around trying to figure out why there was kind of a misfire thing going on. And eventually I got to the point where I realized that I had made this simple mistake. So it happens. You're gonna make mistakes on your projects as well, and just admit to them. You know, this is kind of a life philosophy. Make your mistakes, learn from them, and move on. One of the last steps in tuning the engine, after you've set the timing and balanced the carburetors, is to adjust the mixture, whether making it more lean or more rich. There's a couple ways to do this. The way I like to do it is with a color tune kit. It gives you an accurate view of what's going on in the engine. One carburetor, your front carburetor is mostly going to control these two. Your back carburetor is going to control these two. So we're going to take the spark plug out, number one. Then we have this special little spark plug. It has a glass top on it, so you can see the fuel being burned inside. and depending on what color it's burning, it tells you what the mixture ratio is. So with that screwed in, we have to tighten it up a little bit. Don't go crazy. Has a special adapter for your socket. Then it gets this adapter, to lengthen it. And you hook your spark plug back on. If you follow the instructions on the back, if it's burning yellow, that means it's way too rich. If it's blue, that's what you want. And somewhere, between light blue and dark blue. So, and on these carbs, to adjust them, let me show you how to do that. On the bottom of the carb there's a adjustment screw right here. Actually, it pulls in and out this right here, which is the where the needle goes in. And when it goes down, it makes it more rich. It's like pulling up the choke. The choke actually lowers that and makes it more rich. So that just sets, how rich or how lean it is. Just like that. So now that we've done the front side, we'll move the color tune to number 4 and check number 4. So while editing the video, I realized that I'd put this bracket on backwards. So I came out to the shop and switched it around. With it in this position, when you lift up the throttle, the choke here, it allows more movement in this arm, and that allows this to move the throttle. And there's a screw here. It's your fast idle adjustment. So when you pull the choke just a little bit, it increases the throttle. When you pull it even further, it increases the richness of the fuel mixture. So there's 2 steps to choking your engine, and with this bracket on backwards, it wasn't allowing it to do that. So now it should work much better. I'm pretty happy with where we are right now. I've color tuned both the carburetors. Well, let's review. I've gone through, set the timing. After the timing was set, I balanced the carburetors. After the carburetors were balanced, I did a color tune. And now it's running pretty sweet.
If you want to come along on the ride as we complete this project, click the subscribe button. If you want YouTube to tell you every time there's a new video, click the alarm bell. Thanks for watching, and your support is very much appreciated.